Hello, hello. Welcome everyone to another live stream for our Capacitor Month celebration. If you weren't with us last time, I think it makes sense to introduce ourselves once again. And I think we have a new face for this live stream. So I'll start with myself, Connor Simmons. I'm on the Capacitor team here at Ionic, working closely with Dallas and others. Dallas, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hey everyone. This is Dallas. I'm the product manager for Capacitor. Really excited to be here and hanging out today.
And a new face, Damien.
Yeah, hey everyone, Damien here. I'm a solution architect at Ionic. Been here for a couple of years, celebrating 2 years at Ionic today.
Yes,
actually.
happy anniversary to Damien. Awesome. Yeah, so if you've been following along throughout Capacitor Month, we've been sharing a ton of stuff. So I think it makes sense. The first question I'm going to throw over to Dallas is, for those maybe who haven't been tuned in, what has been going on throughout Capacitor Month? What have we done?
Yeah, Cap Month's been a lot of fun. We've been doing a lot of just various content and really just trying to showcase a lot of what's going on in the capacitor world. So we've had events going on from these live streams. We had one about a week and a half ago where we talked about building your own custom capacitor plugin. We've had live Q&A with the engineers from the capacitor team in our Discord on Fridays. If you haven't been there, it's been fun. Definitely recommend showing up there. There's been lots of content on our Capacitor Twitter. We've had lots of blogs going out. Just lots and lots of chatter about what we're doing here at Capacitor, and getting excited about everything that's going on.
Yeah, definitely head on over to the Capacitor Twitter and follow along from the past few weeks of tweets. We've shared pretty much everything we've been doing and quick access to all the links to the blogs, links to the last live stream where we had Logan walking us through that. That was awesome. So definitely check that out. But over to Damien, who's I think our special guest for today. He works as a solutions architect by day, but he also works on developing probably something you've used throughout your Ionic development process in whatever spare time he finds. So Damien, you want to talk a little bit about that with us?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I spend a bunch of my time mostly helping out customers, and one of the ways that I do that in an unofficial capacity is through the VS Code extension and doing developments on that. So adding features to that, getting things checked out in a project, looking for common problems, and then developing fixes for those. So I can definitely present some of the new stuff that we've got coming out here. And one of the new things you've probably seen is the option to migrate to Capacitor 5. So for anyone who doesn't know, Capacitor 5 came out with a requirement to update to Android SDK 33 or Android 13. And part of the process of migrating a Capacitor 4 project to 5 is that you need to make sure your plugins are up to date. Need to go through that npx cap migrate command that we've seen. And the VS Code plugin helps you out with that. So to show you through this, I've got a Capacitor 4 project that we're running here with a few community plugins as well included. These are Cap 4 plugins too. We have a look through. We're all on Capacitor 4 there. One of the neat features with the VS Code extension is that when you go through this migrate to Capacitor 5 option, what it's going to do in the background there is check out each of your peer dependencies on plugins that are already in there. And if it sees that there's one dependent on Cap 4, it's going to go have a look for a Cap 5 version for you. And that will get mentioned as getting updated as part of that process. It'll also do a few checks along the way as well, making sure that you're using JDK 17, which is a requirement to be able to use the Gradle 8, which is another update to Android Studio. So it does those couple of checks there. Now, I think I've just bump myself into a quick bug, but let me just reopen that project.
It wouldn't be a live stream without something like that.
Right.
Exactly. I just let that. So let's run through the migration. So this is updating those community plugins that we saw, and then it's going through the Impex Cap migrate, running through the process of upgrading not only Capacitor iOS Android, Capacitor CLI, and then any other Capacitor plugins that I've actually used there. So once this is complete, project should be ready to go, and should be able to build and run it.
Yeah, we're excited for the Capacitor 5 release, right? That was part of our Capacitor month. We had the announcement block that went out last week, and like you mentioned, Damien, there's a lot of great changes that came with Cap 5. The important ones being compatibility with Play Store guidelines. All new apps have to target SDK 33 by August of this year. So this is a required upgrade for anyone who is using Capacitor, and that's typically why we release these major updates. There was also a lot of great other plugin updates that came along with Capacitor 5. I've seen some chatter in the comments about Google Maps. I've got this comment here from Scott. Right, great job on Google Maps. Thank you. Yeah, we added a bunch of polyline support in for Google Maps. Right, there's polylines and just a lot of various drawings. That was one of the most requested feature requests for Google Maps. We were excited to get that one out there. So yeah, lots of great movement with Capacitor 5, and we're excited to continue iterating on that.
Awesome. So we've got our Capacitor 5 upgrade done. We're ready to run the application. And I wanted to show you guys a new little feature that's been added to the VS Code extension. I'm just going to run this as web for the moment, and that is going to essentially run a dev build server. If I have a look at our, let's see if we can see this here. It should be showing preview. We're running our application. Just going to check one thing out. Just a sec. Okay, I've got a couple of devices showing the video over here, and it is a live feed, so that's my hand there. This is actually, they're running the Nexus application. One's running on Android, one's running on iOS, and it has actually detected that my app is running, and I can actually launch those. And it's
very cool.
That, yeah, they're both up and running. They're actually running in live mode. And if I were to change something, so for example, if I were to change that wording agenda, I'm just going to call that stuff. Save that. And you can see that it's updated both of those on there. You'll
Very
also
cool.
notice that down in our output, we've actually got the output coming from those devices live. So that's one of the new features where you can essentially get your app development going quickly iterate on the application, and then see any errors or console logging that come live from the device. So alternative way to debug applications, and a new feature in the VS Code extension.
Yeah. So, Damien, what prompted you to build this into the VS Code extension?
Yeah. So one of the difficult things about hooking up the whole environment with mobile development is that you have to get Android Studio up and going. You have to get Xcode. If you're on a Windows machine, you're out of luck on the Xcode side of things. So having something like the Nexus browser, which you install as an app on your phone, is something someone can do really easily. They can get into VS Code really easily, and then they don't necessarily need to go into Xcode, Android Studio, set up a like USB cables with develop mode devices, all of that sort of thing. It makes it a lot easier to essentially get started. Allows you to work on a Windows machine and get something up and going, but also be able to iterate very quickly on an application and get that feedback with the console log debugging and plugin debugging straight back into the IDE. So makes it easy for say making API calls for native HTTP calls and seeing what the result may be, because you can send the logs back in and see it in the output. So it's, a different way of debugging, and something that makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's a massive developer experience improvement. I mean, it's always nice when you can actually try things out on the device instead of a simulator. And obviously one of the sticking points with that was often trying to figure out whatever did go wrong and trying to wrangle all the different consoles together. And it's nice that this kind of puts it all in one place for you and still gives you that ability to play around with it on the device, which is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool beans. Should we show something else?
I think we should show off something coming soon, right?
Yeah. So this one is actually kind of cool, and something you can try out right now is go into your extensions section, click on your Ionic extension if you've installed it, and we're going to hit this switch to pre-release version. And it's going to require us to reload the IDE, which we're going to do. And we'll get a few extra features. Now, on my project here, I've got a few plugins, but let's say that I'm interested in finding out maybe a screen reader plugin. I need one of those. Well, I can click on this little option here with the 3 dots. If I'll move this up, you'll notice that we've now got a plugin search, which looks awesome. We've got 12 plugins installed, but I want to look for, say, Reader. And here's a screen reader plugin that we might be interested in. Maybe I'm interested in, say, SSL pinning. And you can see here that it's found one available here. It's also found a few other options available as well. So what's actually happening here is we've got essentially all of the plugins that you may be familiar with, but we've got them centralized in the one place. And we've got the data for that available as well. So it's pulling from a plugin registry of information. Essentially from here, we can install those. And if I were going back to this reader one, and I hit my install, you'll notice it briefly said finding the best possible plugin version. What it actually did there was it had a look at the project, saw that there was Capacitor 5, see if there's a version that's available for Capacitor 5 and install that. If you had Capacitor 4, to look for one and use the version that's appropriate for Capacitor 4. Now, it also does that with even things like Angular as well. So if I were to look for an Angular QR code reader and I choose one of those, latest version might be Angular 16, but my project here is sitting on Angular 13, it would find the appropriate version and install the right one. So not only does it let you install, update your dependencies for plugins, lets you search for them and essentially find plugins in the sort of topic that you're after. So if I was looking for biometrics, for example, Ionix Identity Vault pops up. You'll also notice that we can click on the more information, and that actually just brought up a little window with docs. And that works with each of the the packages that we've got installed in there as well. So I'm using, say, the browser API. If I want more information on that, it brings that up in a separate window. So it makes it easy to get to docs as well.
It's seamless. I mean, like it's oftentimes you're always forgetting. Oh, I know I need to use this API. I don't remember what name it was, and you're always going to the browser, finding the docs, and this is one click. It's incredible. I also love that we already have the filters in there if you're trying to identify what platforms it's working on, and also that that you already have this one installed, or if it's out of date and whatnot. This is again a massive developer experience improvement.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of features that are in there already, but we're also in sort of the pre-release stage. So it's a good opportunity to try it out, provide a bit of feedback to us, and let us know what you'd like to see.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
On that end, Dallas, is there anything that we're cooking up alongside this?
Yeah, so this whole Plugin Registry project is actually really exciting because the VS Code extension here is really the first use case that we want to showcase for this. But all of the data that we're collecting to build this registry, we plan for this to be completely open, right? We want this data to underpin your experience building with Capacitor so that you can find all of the plugins that you need, right? I've talked with a lot of members of the community, and that's oftentimes one of the most challenging aspects of working with Capacitor is how do I find the right plugin that works in my application, right? And there's a lot of caveats of things you need to look for. Does it support Capacitor 5 right now? Is it a Cordova or Capacitor plugin? Has it been updated recently? Does it work on Android versus iOS? And so we want this to really be a single source of truth of all of this information so that it's easy to find. We love the VS Code extension. It's a perfect place for this data. We also plan to expose this as part of the Capacitor documentation at a later date. We plan to build a whole web experience around this. And we also plan for all of the data collection and sourcing and testing that we do to be open source so that it can be made available to everyone. We want everyone to be able to get in there and contribute. If we're missing packages or plugins that should be in there, right? We want the community to be able to go in and add those in so that we have that complete and holistic view of the ecosystem around Capacitor.
That's awesome. Yeah. So, I mean, if you weren't here last time, like we mentioned, Logan had started to build out, this media plugin to incorporate into our Capacitor applications. And so something like this where it'd be simple for him to go in and say, let me add this to the registry so that everyone knows it's available, and not having to put it out on, this collection of Capacitor plugins on GitHub or this collection of Capacitor plugins. Now we got one spot everyone can go to. It's the source of truth, as we say, for all things Capacitor plugins. So it definitely makes it a lot easier to find what you're looking for.
Yeah, I think one of the things we didn't that's not surfaced right now, but it's information that we're working on adding to the registry, right? Is what does this plugin work on, right? What platform, right? In terms of Capacitor 5, Capacitor 4, because it's easy to look at dependencies and say this should work, but then the question comes, does it actually work? And so I know one of the projects that Damien's been working on is actually testing all of these plugins by dropping them into various projects, running them against a CI/CD server to see, do they actually build, do they actually run? And then ideally, right, we'll surface this information as part of the registry so that you can see, oh, this plugin works on Capacitor 3 and 4. It doesn't build on 5, right? And then perhaps we can use that information to help plugin authors and maintainers, keep their plugins up to date, help them so they know if their plugins work or not. We see a lot of potential in this solution to just benefit the community as a whole, both developers as well as plugin authors, right? Capacitor doesn't exist without plugin authors. The Ionic team can only build so many plugins, and there's unlimited features out there that you can build for, right? All sorts of native APIs to support and native SDKs that other companies put out. We recognize that those plugin authors are really the lifeblood of the ecosystem, and so we want this tooling in place to really support them and help them.
Absolutely. So I know we switched over to a pre-release version of this, Damien, and some people might not be inclined to use pre-release versions, but any thoughts or ideas on when something like this might be made available in a formal version?
Well, I'd first like to say you can easily switch between pre-release and release.
Looks pretty easy.
Pretty easy. You can click that button, just like I had switched to pre-release. I can do switch to release, but it isn't too far off that we'll actually see this released. And we'll probably have an announcement pretty soon on when we'll just see this drop into everyone's VS Code extension through one of the regular updates.
Great. And I think coming back to Capacitor Month is what else kind of do we have coming up, Dallas, that people might be interested in?
Yeah, so we're about halfway through the month, and there's a lot of content that we're excited to showcase that's coming up throughout the rest of the month. A lot of what we're looking at doing over the next 2 weeks is looking at our community and highlighting a lot of the creators that are out there that are building, that are building awesome things with Capacitor. So we've got a lot of creators that we plan to highlight. We've got a few more fun facts about Capacitor. If you didn't see the one on, I don't remember what it was about a week ago, right? It was posted by Max, talking about the history of the name Capacitor and where it used to come from, and the original name. Is it a fruit? I think it was a fruit. I don't know. You'll have to go watch it if you didn't see it. Go search back in our Twitter feed. You'll find it. So yeah, we've got lots of points like that. Like we've been doing every Friday, the engineers will continue to be in Discord at 12 p.m. Central, same time as this live stream, just hanging out, answering questions. So if you're running into any problems with Capacitor, building plugins, and working with plugins, anything with Capacitor Core, we definitely encourage you come hang out with us in Discord. And then we've got a few other product announcements as well that are going to be coming later this month. So we're shipping things all month long. It's great.
Yeah, it's been an awesome month, and it was cool to see Damien already had SSL pinning pulled up in the plugin search. It was released basically
2 days ago.
Yeah, 2 days ago. So we're talking real time for this search mechanism, and I think we're either sending out a new post today or it should be out soon with a relaunch of Federated Capacitor. So if you haven't read that blog yet, definitely go check that out. Sort of a reintroduction of what we brought to the market. You might formally know it as Portals for Capacitor, but we're reintroducing as Federated Capacitor, and the blog will explain why. So if you're into module federation, looking to leverage that in your Capacitor applications, definitely go give that blog a read, and it should help you navigate through what's going on in that space. I think that was most of what we wanted to touch on today, right, Dallas?
Yeah. So the other thing that I want to call out that is really exciting, we have one more live stream planned for later this month. Let me find the date, because I want people to tune into this because it's going to be really good. So later this month, it's planned for the 24th. Okay. So that's Thursday next week. Wednesday or Thursday, right? Whatever the 24th is.
Yeah.
24th. We'll talk about it. It's 7 days. It's Wednesday next week.
Yeah.
Okay, next Wednesday, we've got one more live stream. We're going to have two of the engineers from Capacitor team on, and we're going to be talking about a brand new plugin coming to Capacitor, and it's going to be very cool. I don't want to spoil it, so I'll let you ponder that in the background and figure out, what we're going to be talking about. we're excited. It's going to be great.
I love it. But yeah, any other live stream requests? We don't want to stop here. We don't want to stop after May ends. We want to keep these live streams going. Hopefully it's been informative the last two. Hopefully you guys enjoyed us kind of going through what we have, what Capacitor can do, what's coming out soon. I know the next one will be even better than the last, and we're going to keep improving on these, but definitely let us know what else you want to see. We love doing these live streams. We love getting to hang out and chat and build together.
So let's talk through a couple of comments from the YouTube chat here. We've got a couple of things that I think would be awesome. First off, we're getting some comments here, Damien, about your plugin, VS Code extension. Absolutely love this. Virus Blitz. Thank you. We appreciate it. Some random guy named Max thinks this is fire. I'm sure he's not really anybody.
Yeah, thanks for hanging out, man.
Yeah, good to see you, Max. Yeah, so I think this one from what is this? Joptimus. I'm sorry, I'm probably going to ruin your names here. So in the VS Code extension, in the packages, why does it show the latest stable build only for Apple computers and not Windows? Is that something you've seen?
Not something I've seen, unless there's some sort of problem with running npm outdated, and then it may only show the current version that it can find. It relies on npm commands like npm outdated to work out which versions it can update to. And so if there's any problems with the node modules folder, then I could possibly just show the current version. If that is something that's a problem and you can reproduce it, just sending over a request under support. If you look in the extension under the support, there's provide feedback link. Click that and drop in an issue there. That's the best place to get feedback on things, to get things resolved relatively quickly. And if it's something that can be easily reproduced, then I'll usually jump on and fix that relatively quickly. And definitely want to make sure that Windows isn't left out as well. It's not my primary machine that I work on, but I do have an old Windows 10 box that fire it up occasionally and retest things there. And there's always something quirky that goes on with a Windows machine. So definitely possible there's a bug there.
Yeah, usually that's the opposite story I hear. Usually development teams work on Windows and then they have their little Mac Mini that's relegated to the back corner. Nobody goes and touches it until they need to do a build. So it's kind of fun to hear the opposite story sometimes too.
Don't unplug, don't turn off.
Yeah, even the Windows machines get relegated to the corners too. Happens to everybody.
We can certainly attest to the speed, though. Damien is on top of this stuff. Again, I don't know if he sleeps or not, but he is always churning out updates to the VS Code extension. It's awesome to see.
Yeah, definitely. I'm glad you answered that about how to submit feedback. That's always helpful for all of us on the Capacitor side, both for the VS Code extension as well as Capacitor Core and all of the Capacitor plugins. Community feedback is really what drives a lot of what we do in the product, and we always appreciate that. So let's see what else we got here in comments. So I think this one's fun to talk about. AI and VS Code would be slick. Yeah, there's been a lot of talk about AI. Have you looked at this, Damien?
I've got a little markdown document called Roadmap, and it's something that's in there. Just working out how to make sure that AI is up to date. And that is definitely one of the trickier things. I know we can probably mention that in the Discord, that we now have a channel that has an AI bot in it, basically giving feedback on that. I haven't had a chance to look at it yet to see how that is actually running, and what model it's using, how the API for that works. But it's definitely something I'd probably want to look at. And I know that Max has been doing a bit of experimentation in that area as well, with some sort of experiments on using ChatGPT to essentially develop a plugin that does X, that sort of thing. And I know on the VS Code extension, it's something that looks at whenever you build your project and you see an error, it actually does error inspection of those and assists you by capturing the actual error that it is in logs that are, whether they're Xcode, Java, so plugin errors, native errors, and TS-lint errors, ES-lint errors, unit test errors, and redirecting it around. So it does have that inspection point where it could be added in to give you the fix for an error as well, and something that I'm sure people would love to see. But yeah, it's a bit of extra work to add that in, and a lot more testing too. So we'll see.
Definitely. So Yeah, along those lines, so we had this comment earlier, right? Does the VS Code plugin help with the creation of plugins? This is actually something we've been exploring internally as part of the Capacitor team of, can we use, tying this into the AI, right? Can we use these AI tools to help build plugins, right? Because overall, Capacitor plugins are pretty straightforward, right? That a lot of it is fairly boilerplate code, as you have to just, link your JavaScript to your backend. And if you're integrating with an API, oftentimes it's just kind of exposing those API endpoints. It's not often much more complex than that. So yeah, AI could totally be a solution to help with these creation of plugins. And I personally think this VS Code extension is a great place to expose that level of functionality.
We also have in the latest version, if you actually open up a Capacitor plugin project, it'll give you the opportunity to migrate that to a Capacitor 5 based plugin project, just like you can migrate your Ionic project across. And I do know that we do have the ability to have multiple starters at the moment with the VS Code extension. It effectively uses Ionic Start for the various starters in Angular, Vue, React. There's no real reason why we can't have a plugin starter as well to get people on the path of developing their first plugin. Definitely worth investigating, because half the time you do need some native functionality, and quite often if you venture outside of the JavaScript world, you can actually find that the native development isn't as difficult as you thought. So yeah, good feedback.
Yeah. All right, I think we got one more question that could be good to talk about here. What do we do about packages that don't upgrade during this upgrade process, right? We've seen this a lot with some of the plugins, right? When Cap 5 comes out, a lot of the plugins aren't initially updated. There's a little bit of a waiting period. What else can developers do?
Yeah, so one of the things that the VS Code extension does when it goes through that migrate process and bumps into a plugin that doesn't have a peer dependency that has Cap 5 is that it will have a look at the repo that's associated with that particular plugin, look where the link for the bugs issues are, and point you to it. So we'll spit out the URL that you want to click into, submit a issue saying, hey, we want Cap 5 support or compatibility if there's a bug or issue with it. The other thing you can do is actually help out with that process and submit a PR. So I know a lot of plugins have been updated already to Cap 5. Some plugins like Cordova ones may have old compatibility issues. Those sorts of things you may need to look up where the source repository is on npm, file an issue there as well. And then if you're looking at additional help with that, people like myself who are solution architects for Ionic, we have advisory services for that where we'll actually help people out if you want that additional level of support with tracking down a problematic plugin.
Awesome. All right. Last little comment I think we'll call out here, and then we'll wrap it up, from Aaron Saunders, who's a big community member that we love on our ecosystem. VS Code plugin is awesome. I use it in all my videos and haven't used the CLI in months. I think it's a pretty great testament to the power of this extension, right? That it just kind of encompasses everything you need into this one way to manage all of that. So we absolutely love it. If you haven't used it, here's the link to get that VS Code extension. Just ionic.link/VS Code, or in your VS Code editor, you can just search for Ionic and it should pop right up. Yeah, absolutely love it. Damien, it's been great having you on here.
Yeah, yes. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks so much, Damien. Thanks for tuning in today, everyone. Continue to follow along on the Capacitor Twitter. We'll keep sharing tons of information throughout the rest of the month. So stay plugged in there. And like Dallas said, we'll catch you in the next one on the 24th.
1 week. Expect to see everyone here again.
Okay. Thanks so much.
Take care, everyone.
Sure.